Righto, Starlight Budapest Major is coming up pretty soon, so we're looking forward to it. And of course, that means it is Pick'em's time. I think it's going to be a very interesting major to have a bit of a look at here because a lot of teams are doing pretty well at the moment. And there's a lot of storylines. There's a lot of teams that feel like they could do well at this major that are kind of coming together at the right time. So I'm enjoying the way that the season has kind of played out thus far. And I think we're going to have a good culmination at the major. But of course, what we have to talk about first is stage number 1. So a few of the teams that are maybe a little bit lesser known, and in particular, if you're watching this video, you might be interested in my thoughts on the Asia region. Again, that's where I've spent a lot of my time, and that's where I tend to sort of consider myself a bit of an expert. So, if you're looking for information on any of the teams coming into stage 1 from Asia, this video should be quite useful for you if you're not too familiar with them. When it comes to the other teams, the sort of South American teams, the North American teams, and the European teams, I think there are other people that have got probably a little bit more of a finger on the pulse with those regions. So take what I say as a bit of a grain of salt with regard to some of these other teams, but certainly when it comes to Asia, I think you can take it somewhat as a bit of a gospel, at least, take my opinion as something of value. Now, I find stage 1 here actually quite interesting because we've got a lot of teams that were back in stage 1 for the Austin Major as well. There was a few of them that did quite well for themselves. Bait, Envision, and Legacy all progressed last time around. FlyQuest and NRG were very close to progressing. They went 2 and 3, and then Imperial and Fluxo were there at 1 and 3 and 0 and 3 respectively. So we actually have a very similar looking stage 1 here in Budapest as what we did in Austin. We can maybe infer from some of those previous results how things might play out here as well, although there have obviously been some roster changes on pretty much the majority of the field, bar those ones that did progress. I think Bait, Vision, and Legacy all have not made changes, so shouldn't be too much of a surprise to see me, at least as we go through this video, favoring them in some way, shape, or form. And we'll start off with Legacy. I think they're just the easy 3 and 0 pick at this point, right? They are a team that, are obviously in great form at the moment. We saw what they can do last major. They haven't made any changes. I think they're still, progressing really nicely. Dumao and Lato definitely going to clean up in a tournament with teams such as these. The caliber of the competition that they're going up against, I think, should be very easy for them to manage. So I think for me, they're an easy 3 and 0 pick. I think they're the easiest 3 and 0 pick. I'd say they're probably going to be the one that, when you look at that spreadsheet of all of the content creators and casters and, people doing these videos, you're probably going to see a lot of Legacy in the 3 and 0. Yes, they could lose a BO1. It is possible. They are playing against FlyQuest in the opening match, and FlyQuest have actually challenged them in their more recent matches, close maps, and they even, I think, beat them, not last time, but the time they played prior to that. So I think there is a precedent set that maybe FlyQuest can cause some kind of an upset there in that BO1, but, who else is a better option? At a 3 and 0 right now, I don't think that there is one. Personally, I'm definitely on that Legacy hype train. Now, for our second 3 and 0 pick, we are going to lean towards Gamer Legion. I think, again, they're still a very, very strong team, although they have had a couple of stumbles lately. I still think the core identity of this team is a very good one. I like PR, I like Res, and especially against competition of this caliber, I think they should be fine. They looked pretty good back at Bucharest. Again, like I said, they had some stumbles throughout this season, but they seem to be kind of like on the improve a little bit. Obviously, they've had time now with Hypex to kind of integrate him into the lineup. And again, I think generally speaking, looking at what that team or what the core of that team has been able to achieve in the past over a longer period rather than just the more immediate future, I still have quite a bit of faith in Gamer Legion here. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as a 3 and 0 pick, although I don't have quite as much confidence for them as I did, obviously, for Legacy. Now we get into the more interesting discussion, I think. And because this is where, traditionally speaking, you're probably going to pick up the bulk of your points is the 3-1 and the 3-2, unless you get a little bit lucky with a 3 and 0 or a 0 and 3, because we know that those 3-0s and those 0 and 3s can just so easily go wrong. So for me, I feel like locking in on these is a little bit more important. First one, actually, I'm going to go with FlyQuest. I know I'm from Australia. I'm obviously the Asia CS guy, so I have a little bit of bias in this respect, but I actually think FlyQuest have looked pretty decent lately. They've had an uptick in form, especially. And they also have a previous history of only just missing out in stage 1. The last 2 majors that they played out, they went 2 and 3. So I really think that they have been previously on the cusp and really, really close. And, they both actually went, I think they went 2 and 0 in both of those previous majors as well. So, they missed out in the BO3s. That is definitely a concern of some sort. But realistically speaking, they've been so close for the last couple of majors. I think at some point it is going to happen for FlyQuest, and I'm hoping that it is going to be here at the Budapest Major. Other changes as well since the previous major. They have JKS now, they have Azza now, which they did not have at the Austin Major, and they also actually looked pretty good in Bucharest. And look, Draculan wasn't so fantastic for them, but that was only just after the addition of Azza. They have made some role changes as well since that. I'm definitely on the FlyQuest hype train. Look, Is there a world where they could even go 3-0? I almost want to say yes, just because they've gone 2-0 twice in a row. Could they do it again? Well, like I said, I think they could potentially beat Legacy in a BO1, but I'm going to give them the 3-1, 3-2. I don't think they're quite as quality of a team at the moment as Legacy and Gamer Legion, and I don't necessarily have that same faith that they could 3-0, in a BO3, for example, when they do get to that 2-0 phase. But I do have enough faith that they will be able to make it through this stage. So I'll give them the nod to start things off. Moving on, we've got quite a few interesting teams here. Obviously, I mentioned Lin Vision a little bit earlier on. FaZe is always a consideration, but I think the next one that I'm quite intrigued to see is actually Bait. Obviously, they had a pretty strong run at the previous major. I still think they're a really good across the board kind of team, decent enough form. I don't think that there's any necessarily massive changes in terms of the storyline for Bait over the last sort of 6 months. I just think, again, looking at the competition that they face here, they should be a comfortable enough team to make it through. So that's an easy pick for me. Lin Vision, again, another team from my home region. They have been facing a couple of stumbles over the sort of last sort of season, I suppose, but I still have them competing relatively well internationally. They are still taking scalps. And again, historically, they have actually peaked reasonably well at majors. So again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think I was a big doubter of theirs going into the previous major. And I know that the previous major was a little bit of a step up from them in a sense, or maybe even they hit another level that we haven't really seen them hit since. But I still think even at their base level, they actually are good enough to get through competition of this level. I would look at them in a BO3 against a lot of these teams, and I'd say, either it's like a 50-50 or they're maybe slightly favored in a lot of those matches. So I think they're, if not reasonably comfortable, at least a solid choice for me. And hopefully they're going to peak at this major in the same way that they did in the previous couple of majors. Now, here's where things, I think, are going to start to get interesting. I'm very intrigued to see what people are going to start to say about FaZe here. I think maybe some people are going to even have them as a 3-0, just based off solely on the individuals that you've got on this lineup. It's still, it's still a very good lineup in terms of the individuals that you've got here. And I think in terms of the quality of Counter-Strike that you get in Stage 1, if you watch the couple of last majors, it's very, very messy Counter-Strike sometimes. And at that point, you can just look at the individuals and say, is this a guy that can hard carry a game? And I think that there are a couple of guys that are there on FaZe that are going to be able to do that. Yes, I know things are a bit awkward at the moment. Brokey's been in pretty bad form. They still seem like they're having trouble integrating Jacob and all of that jazz. Yeah, they've been on a bit of a downward trend. But how far of a downward trend have they really been on? We're still talking about that in relation to the expectations around this team, not necessarily in relation to what are they going to do in Stage 1 of the major. So I think, stock is low for FaZe, but I think they're still a good buy here for a 3-1, 3-2. I even think you could potentially put them as a 3-0 team, just such is the quality of that roster. It's very, very hard to go past a team like FaZe. And I do think you're kind of trolling or hate maxing a little bit if you don't have them progressing. So I think they go through for me. Next team to progress here, a few options. I think we've got Fnatic, I think we've got NIP, I think we've got Power Revision as a conversation point. Beyond that, maybe M80 if you're an NA fan. But I think I'm going to go with Fnatic again for very, very similar reasons to what I had for FaZe. I think it's really hard to go past individuals of this caliber. Obviously, BlameF is there. He is someone that could probably just carry this team through a stage like this one. And yeah, I know there's a lot of experience on the rest of the roster as well. Their opening matchup, also Red Canids, I think they get a bit of a freebie there personally. So I've got a little bit of faith here for Fnatic. I know it's been a little bit up and down. Obviously, people are sort of not too high on them at the moment, but it's pretty hard to go past a team like Fnatic. So for me, they are going to get the nod. Other considerations here, like I said, Paravision, definitely a consideration if you're a Jane believer. And again, this is a team that's kind of grinding in that Eastern European competition level, which is actually generally pretty high. So I think there's certainly something to be said for Paravision. NIP as well, you've got quite a few decent players on that lineup, and they've maybe been on the improve a little bit. So I think for me, it's between those two teams personally. I think I'm just going to go with Paravision. I have a little bit more faith maybe in what James is going to be able to deliver against competition of this level. Obviously, he's someone that has had a stylistically quite interesting way of playing the game, and I wonder if that's going to be maybe a little problematic for some of the lesser teams, or maybe some of the weaker teams in this level. So I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here and lock that in as my 3-1 and my 3-2. Now, as far as the 0-3s are concerned, again, this is where things probably get a little bit more interesting for you guys because I'll be talking a bit more about the Asian teams. Again, I know I should be, of anybody, the one that doesn't put an Asian team 0-3, right? Asian teams don't go 0-3, except Rare Adam. I just really don't like this team. I am just such a hater of Rare Adam. I really don't even. I almost wish they were not at this tournament. Like, and I know. I mean, I hope no one from Rare Adam is going to be watching this because it will really hurt to hear someone say that about your team. But I just do not think this is a good team at all. I don't like the changes that they've been making. I mean, look, obviously Tiger coming in. I actually don't hate that necessarily. Tiger for Kaze, or it wasn't actually Tiger for Kaze. It was Tiger for somebody, and then Marek for Kaze. But I think the implication there was Tiger for Kaze because he's obviously the AWPer. I actually don't hate that necessarily on the surface of it. I think Tiger's a pretty okay AWPer. Deserved a bit of a step up to have a bit of a chance at a different level of competition compared to what he had been playing at previously. But, you know, Marek coming in for Kaze, I don't really, I don't know, I can't get behind adding Marek into this lineup. Like, it's already a bit of a boomer team with Summer there. You're adding Marek in. I don't really see what he's going to be able to do at this level of competition after coming back after so long. And honestly never was really like such a solid player to begin with. I think he was, I mean, I think he was a fine pickup as a coach, but I don't know. I'm just not a fan of this Rare Adam lineup. Every time I watch them play, I'm like, what are they doing? Like, it just seems like a mess every time I see them play. And, you know, people will look at this and say, well, why not the Huns? Why not put the Huns there at 0-3? Obviously, Rare Adam typically actually do beat the Huns in a lot of their head-to-head matches, and that could theoretically quite easily be a 0-2 matchup. I don't know. Like, I just think the Huns are slightly better on an individual basis. You've got someone like Score, you've got someone like Nine, who we know can actually at times deliver on an international level and like, let's say, win a BO1, for example, or take a BO3 away from their opponent. So I have a little bit more faith in the Huns, which is, again, funny to say because historically speaking and results-wise, actually Rare Adam do perform better than the Huns, but I'm just a Rare Adam hate maxer, guys. Like, I do not like this team at all. Not that I'm preying on their downfall necessarily. Like, I don't want to see any Asian team go 0-3. In fact, if I could see all the Asian teams progress, then that would be exactly what I would want. But I just can't go past Rare Adam as a 0-3 pick here, unfortunately. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Huns are not part of that conversation. I actually think in terms of the teams that you could look at and think about who would we put in a 0-3, for me, it's probably maybe NRG, Red Canids, Fluxo potentially, and the Huns. Now, I think for me, it will be Red Canids here. I just think they're slightly weaker than the rest of those options. They haven't really had that same experience playing internationally as a lot of those other teams have had. So for me, I just will put look, and also I don't want to put the Huns there. I don't want to put two Asia teams at 0-3. I think the Huns actually is a viable option, but. Look, again, I have a little bit of faith in these Mongolian teams. Typically, whenever they go and, they're a team that can really surprise, I think, in a BO1, right? Especially. So someone like a Score or like a Nine could just come out and blast a few heads off in the same way that Chingus Warriors were able to do at the Ossa Major. So I would be very hesitant about putting the Huns as a 0-3, but I'm pretty confident about Rare Adam. So in terms of a confidence level, quite confident in the Legacy 3-0, quite confident in the Rare Adam 0-3. Gamer Legion and Raid Cannons are a bit more like okay, this seems like the best of the rest kind of option. And then in terms of my 3-1, 3-2, I'm quite confident in FlyQuest. I'm quite confident in Bait. I don't know. We'll see. Limvision, they're a bit of a hit and miss sometimes, but I'm quite confident in FaZe. Fnatic and Paravision, I think, are also a bit more of an X factor. So if I'm right about my confident picks, which would be Legacy, Rare Adam, that's 2, FlyQuest 3, Bait 4, and Fnatic 5, and that's what you need to get through. So I think I'm in a fairly happy place with where this has ended up. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think, and if I'm an idiot about any of these teams, well, probably I am. But I did get a gold coin last year or last major, so I don't know. Maybe that's good enough. Maybe it's not. Diamonds for losers anyway. All right. Peace out.